Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Brea. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, people did correct me a lot last episode, and I do appreciate everyone letting me know, because I was being an idiot about, the whole, how far back in the past we're going to be. I kept being we're going to see dinosaurs. People had to be like, no, you idiot. Of course, it wouldn't make sense. It's even geologically speaking, where California would have been that far back, there's no way it would actually be it'd be under the sea or something like that. Someone was kind of explaining if we were really going that far back, it wouldn't be above water level like it is. So it's we're not going that far back. We do find out it's 10,000 BC. I'm but I guess once again, I was talking about Cage of Eden. I was getting too hyped, thinking oh man, we're going to be going that far back in time. Because there's other shows I know that have touched on the dinosaur thing. I mean, obviously because you're Jurassic Park, but I want to say, doesn't this show Primeval have something to do with that? I think I've seen bits and pieces of it. I have to track down that show. I was really interested. I don't think I've ever watched all of it. Tangents and all that aside. So I was getting a little too ahead of myself, but still, it's still pretty far back. 10,000 BC, as we saw the saber-toothed tigers. People kind of threw out there some other stuff that we might see and stuff like that. So I do appreciate everyone correct me on that, because I was being a big dumb idiot about it. But like I said, I think I got so hyped about Cage of Eden in my head. I was oh my god, if we could get dinosaurs and stuff like that, because that's always a series I brought it up last time I wanted to see get adapted, and sadly it never has. But my idiocy aside, let's focus on Gavin's side of things. Obviously, him and his daughter still trying to deal with how he knows what he knows. We even got a flashback to all those years ago where basically after his accident, his family came to check on him and everything. And he talks about the fact is he had those flashes before the plane crashed, because all the doctors are assuming the crash or the cause of the flashes. But he's I saw it. I've seen this land and everything. So it's that's fascinating. Before people, I mean, we don't even know for sure, and because it comes up later on about once again the Mojave Desert thing. And I might have brought this up last episode. I don't remember, but I think I might have brought up we don't know if the Mojave incident and La Brea are the only ones. This might have happened in other places, but I feel the Mojave Desert one was enough to get enough governmental notice that I feel other instances of that, but not unless it's a thing that's happened all throughout history and just no one's known about it. That these are the most recent events across 3 years, which makes you wonder if these pop up like this, could it be a situation where we could see more and more pop up and maybe more rapidly, and that because we still don't know what the actual root cause of all that is. But regardless, the only way this can turn into a rescue operation is if Gavin can convince Dr. Nathan that there is something, that there are people there that survive, which Dr. Nathan in her own right has her own objective with all of this, because basically the Homeland Security won't co-sign her operation to investigate this, because they don't know what's on the other side. It's until you can find actual proof of what's on the other side. Once you get it, then we'll revisit this conversation. So what she's getting out of this, whether it's just a scientist thing of man, I need to know what's on the other side, that's all I'm caring about, or whether there's even personal stakes connected to this. It just seems just a scientific discovery, because if you're able to discover something like this, it changes all that people have ever known, what we believe to be possible, what we believe to be true. So being able to kind of stamp your name in the history books next to that, it's a pretty big deal. So that might be all there is to it, but maybe she does have other personal stakes in this. But Gavin and his daughter go and get that, because there was that guy interviewed on TV and the news by he's an expert in this field, and it's those birds, we don't know where, the most important thing is kind of not necessarily why they're here, but how they're, oh no, I think it was where we know they're I'm already blanking. It was just kind of where they came from and how they came to be and stuff like that. And so Gavin brings Eve's ring, and it was all I'm asking you to do is carbon date. It's right, you have a family, right? I have 2 daughters. It's right, you do anything to protect them. So that's all, Gavin's trying to do is protect his family. It's and what if it comes back negative, that, it isn't what you think it is? It's then what's the worst that's happened? You wasted maybe a few hours. So, but later on though, Homeland Security, who had been keeping an eye on Gavin the entire time, ended up stealing the ring, and then they bring him in later on so he can talk to Dr. Nathan, and they bring up the Mojave incident. They're like, right, because they looked into it. Because someone had asked me before last episode, like, if he was connected to the Mojave incident, then why wouldn't they already know who he is? And my thought at the time was, and I said this, was like, well, maybe it's because they weren't too caught up. Maybe either, what did I say? I think it was something of the lines of like, maybe they weren't aware of everyone's involvement. Maybe they weren't aware that he was involved, or maybe they're not, maybe there was just maybe extenuating circumstances why they weren't aware. Turns out we got an explanation for those extenuating circumstances. It turns out that his plane crashed 20 miles away from the Mojave incident. So it's like, you wouldn't definitely, like, if he crashed near it, then yeah, there'd be a direct correlation, but he crashed like 20 miles away. So you definitely wouldn't correlate those two things and be, but it's like, right, a guy claiming to see what he's seen who's at the heart of two incidents of a similar nature. Couldn't get that out. So whatever it was, and that's so interesting to know it has such a wide enough radius that whatever it is, it affected him 20 miles away. Not unless he was flying over it and his plane just crashed 20 miles away. Like, he might have been flying right over it and just in that moment, but like, why Gavin? Why in that moment? Would it have been anyone else? Like, what exactly, like, what phenomenon happened that he got, like, radiated with? Was it because he was in a big... Well, I mean, it's like, then what about it? Because it has to have some special property, because notice, like, they brought it up, like, everyone who went through it's like, yeah, we landed here, we fell. Like, that thing is in the sky, and we're all on the ground, and, like, no one's hurt, everyone's fine. The only thing messed with is, like, all the technology. So it's like, it must have done something to their DNA or something, like, rewritten them in some way that maybe they're not aware of. And so, because that's what I was about to say, like, they're at the heart of the incident, and maybe Gavin was too, and he just doesn't, maybe somewhere subconsciously that's blocked, or maybe it's just like the initial boom, like how they were caught in the, but they went through the portal, like, and landed. So, like, anything rewritten in them would make sense. But why Gavin? If, especially, like I said, depending on whether he flew over the incident and then crashed 20 miles away, or was it just because he was in the radius of 20 miles away? Who knows? Like, that's still a big mystery of how this whole thing happens, what caused it in the first place. So now with Gavin's help, they've been able to change things, because now they know what's on the other side, and they're going to go on a mission. Gavin in particular, he's going to fly again and go through. I mean, granted, we saw that the drone shut down immediately, because it seems like, well, it doesn't seem like just like the connection, because that is them going to the past, but like, technology just doesn't work there. Like, all the cards don't work. And then, but the moment the drone went through, it's the signal being lost, no surprise. But I guess maybe it works on, like, some signaling. But, like, there must be something electronically, like, being removed from the equation. I mean, because phones and stuff still work, apparently. But, so why don't, like, car batteries and stuff like that work? It's just like maybe going through, like, all their energy got zapped, but no one's phones did. Or, like, their other so it's like, it seems picky and choosy about what's affected and what isn't. Because not all technology is, specifically the cars were. So that's why I'm like, I don't know. Many more questions. So, but that's kind of on, like, the present day side of things. In the past, we're picking up with Eve, Ty, and Sam as they're running from a saber-toothed tiger, and it's like, what the hell is that? Like, what's going on here? That was definitely a saber-toothed tiger, and it's like, because Eve's the one that kind of figures it out first, of like, you're right, we got to be in the past. Because even present day, they figured out, like, right, the ring carbon dates to 10,000 BC. Hell, even Scott figured it out himself, because what did he say? Like, he's studying, like all of this, like, kind of falls in his wheelhouse of what he's studying. So he ended up recognizing, like, when later on when he's saving those camels, it's like, oh man, there were 8 camels in those tar pits. Like they uncovered, like, 8 camel bones. So it's like, he's like, maybe I just changed time, because now the question is, like, if you go back to those tar pits present day, what happened to those camel bones? Did they just disappear, or is a reality immediately rewritten so that people are like, what are you talking about? Like, because the fact is that Scott remembers that means their perception of time hasn't changed. So does that mean when they go back, the reality will be rewritten? even if they do go back, will it even be their own time? Like, you have to ask questions like that, because now we're on technically a different timeline, because things are different. So even if they do go back home, would it even be the same home they remember? Because things might ripple effect, and things might be slightly different. Maybe things in their personal life aren't, but maybe the world as a whole will be, just because what they do in the past will have ramifications for the future, may even on some level affect them, since we're dealing with something like 10,000 BC. Who knows how far that will trickle down and affect each of the people that are there. Once again, when it comes to, like, I used to not be the biggest science fiction nerd. Dude, I'm in, especially with time travel. Like, I get super in. I zone in on, like, time travel shit. That's my jam. When it's like, dude, the implications of what this could mean, the ramifications. Like, maybe the show's not going to go that deep, but that's when my brain starts circling of, like, yeah, like, time is such a fickle thing that, like, you never know, like, the butterfly effect, the ripple effect that will, like, go out, because how it could just like start off so small, and how that ripple can get bigger and bigger and bigger the further you go out. So once again, that's just kind of my brain's like immediate thought process on it. But regardless, initially Eve wants to just kind of go on her own and, try and get back to Josh because he needs help. But Sam's like, no, I'm the doctor. I'll go with you. So her and Ty have got her back. But then Sam gets knocked off because I was like, yikes. Because that actor, I looked at it, I was like, I kept looking like, isn't he in Chicago PD? And I was like, are you just squeezing this in? I was like, I guess, maybe you have enough off time to do this in between Chicago. I haven't watched Chicago PD, recently. I catch little bits here and there from time to time, but I'm not, actively watching it. So I don't know if, especially, newer stuff, most of the stuff I see just, reruns that pop up on, other channels, like USA and, Ion and stuff like that. But, I don't know if his character's still alive or, maybe he, left the show or something like that. I mean, you never know. Some people would just decide not to, what's her name? Monica Raymond. I know she was on Chicago Fire for years, but then she whatever her character circumstances are, she hasn't been she left the show in 2019, whether it's her character just left and moved away or whether her character died, whatever the circumstances, because I knew she was doing Hightown. I was like, whoa, how are you doing? Oh, you left Chicago Fire in 2019, so I don't know what that actor's circumstances are. So that just immediately, because I kept thinking that last episode, is that the same actor? Totally is. Regardless, tangents and all that aside, but when he fell off that cliff, I was like, oh, he's dead. I was like, oh, maybe that's why they were able to... It's like, no, if you look at the Wikipedia page, his name is, on, the starring list, so that's why I was like, at least, one of the names, on the list of, the little bar on the side, oh, this is a show, so here's some information about it, his name was, on that list, so I was like, oh, I feel like he'd be a pretty recurring character, so, oh, okay, but never mind, turns out he's actually okay, because Eve doesn't want to leave him behind, especially considering he has the supplies, and it's Ty's don't worry, no one's gonna die, not your son, not him. I even love that, finding out, Eve's got a lot of stamina, because she's like, oh, yeah, I wake up 5 o'clock in the morning and run, 10 miles. She's like, oh, 10 miles. What are you running from? And she's like, I didn't know we were in session. It's like, yeah, he went super into therapist mode. But that's also the thing, too. It's it's easy to diagnose other people's stuff and not your own, because it sounds like Ty's running from some stuff of his own, too, later on, because Sam's like, oh, it's not hard to see, a diagnosis. I'm like, what are we dealing with? Cancer or something like that? The shortness of breath and stuff like that. And I'm all of these are symptoms. Obviously, as a surgeon, as a doctor, he can recognize a lot of that. So I'm pushing along the lines of, yeah, it's probably a thing of... Cancer is where my mind immediately goes, but maybe it's something else. But, yeah, like I said, it seems like he's definitely running. He's like, yeah, I've been in better health and stuff like that, and we'll leave it at that. It's like, yeah, you're kind of running from your own situation as well. But, yeah, they did find Sam, but his back is really messed up. So he's like, just leave me, go save your son and stuff like that. Here's the supplies. But Eve didn't want to leave him. And I'm wondering, I feel like there's definitely something deeper there. Something I guess, maybe she wasn't there for someone when the time was necessary. Maybe it's a situation. Maybe it's, maybe it's something related to her family. Maybe there's just some deeper lines are there. Maybe she's thinking about her and Gavin's situation, and maybe she feel like she kind of left him when he wasn't in the best condition. Or, I don't know what it is, but, her need to, no, I need to save you. I need to help you. We'll, even if we had to go slow, we'll make it. But at the end, it's right, your son needs it. That infection's going to spread. Go now. I'll be fine. And Ty's going to stay with him. So, she goes off. And I figured the moment she comes back, I didn't think Riley would have the reaction she did, because I thought, Eva would be like, all right, your dad's hurt, let's go back. But it's like, she's like, wait, you left my dad? And it's like, yeah, but he's like, to be fair, he gave her to go ahead as, Riley, because she has her own, I think it stems from like, right, like she was worried because like, yeah, what if something happens to my dad? Like, maybe they haven't had the best, maybe they haven't had the best relationship, so it's like, right, it's one of those things that like, right, when now that you think like this is a place where everything could go wrong, you're scared that like you might not have an opportunity to see him again to make things right. So maybe there was deeper lines to that, but also it's just kind of like, how could you? My dad went with you to help you save your son. It's like, yeah, come back, save your son, sure, but like, what about my dad? It's like, so there might be some underlying issues with that going forward in the future. We'll see. She might be fine with Josh, but she probably won't be fine with Eve. Or maybe, like, she'll feel the need to be like, nah, screw Josh, too, because I get it, but your mom was willing to leave my dad behind just for the sake of saving you. So, like, whatever, like, camaraderie we were building, like, up between each other, trying to, like, joking about everything. Because she even said, like, yeah, because, like, she doesn't need her inhaler now because, like, the pollution or just Earth, like gave her, like, mess with, like, her, sinuses and stuff like that. And it's like, oh yeah, glad to hear that you're doing healthy. She's like, right, I'm sorry, I'm being inconsiderate. Like, there was kind of like a back and forth between them, but I'm like, I'm sure that's kind of down the toilet now. Maybe not. They did luck out, though, because they were found by the guy that Mary Beth, the cop, has been looking for. I thought that was fascinating. Because I love that, like, she was told by Veronica to look after her little sister, Lily, and then she immediately pawned Lily off on, Tony and Bill, and then like she had found the car earlier, and the way she was looking at it, I was like, oh, so she doesn't recognize it. And the moment she sees the drug, she's like, so I was like, are you making a drug deal or not? And then it's just like, but then it's like, it's like, because the way she was acting, I was like, you don't own the car. So I was like, whoever it is, like, either you're trying to make a deal with them, or like, I don't know what's up. So she closes the trunk and she's looking for this guy. Said guy is the one who ends up rescuing, and helping Ty get Sam back. But in the moment, Mary Beth sees him, and it's like, oh, I was trying to stop you from doing something crazy. I was like, okay, either sibling or child. And it turns out it's her son. It's like, she's a cop trying to stop her son from doing something stupid. So I was like, oh, okay. Because someone had thrown out there like, oh, she's the badass and everything. I was like, the show kind of set her up immediately to be kind of a douchebag in the sense that she's very selfish, that she's willing to steal from and hoard stuff already. We haven't even been here. Like, come on. We just got to, let's gather supplies. And she's like, I'm already hoarding stuff. It's like, But also it kind of shows like, and I think that might be what they're setting up too. Like, everyone here is well, not everyone, but a lot of people here are parents trying to do what's, it's like, right, you look after your kid, I'm going to look after mine. So it's like, is he dangerous? Yeah, but he was about to make a big mistake of selling drugs to someone. She just happened to be in the area. Because she ended up saying she's not LAPD, she's from Louisiana, I think she said. So it was the whole thing, because even Scott was like, why are you in LA? Because he's from Australia, but he's living in LA, I think, for like his job and stuff like that. So all the stuff he's like, what he knows about the tar pits and stuff, which is interesting too, because we also got in like Veronica, when they were introduced, I was like, oh, it's a Christian thing to do. Like, her dad needs a proper burial. I was like, that's going to turn into something, isn't it? I mean, I'm only coming from that perspective because I saw something more recently. No spoilers. A massively religious character that I'm like, you seem like you could be the extremist character in this, and boy oh boy did that character turn out to be the extremist character. And obviously there was a lot of like deeper layers to why that character was like basically overcompensating. I don't think that's going to be the case with Veronica, but I'm like, your family situation is going to be crazy. Like, the fact is, like, you're going to be like this super religious, like, because there's certain aspects I'm like, that's not going to, like, when she found her sister with Tony and Bill, I was like, are you not going to, I mean, they didn't announce themselves as like, oh, like, because they brought it up last episode, they're like, they're married, aren't they? I think that's what he said last. They're definitely significant others. I just don't remember whether they're like boyfriends or whether they're like married or not. But I was about to say, like, that seemed like that was about to be an issue, but it didn't come out. So either she doesn't realize that, or she does, and she's just not saying anything. She's just trying to do the Christian thing of like, oh, bless your heart type of thing. Like, I don't know. Side note, I'm not trying to call out any Christians or something like that, but it's just like, some religions don't fuck with homosexuality. So that's why I'm kind of like, that's why I'm like, I don't know if that's what that was or not, but maybe she realized, maybe she didn't. Which they've got their whole thing too. Like I believe Bill was like, "Oh, look at Tony, you're trying to act like the mechanic. You're not." He's like, because I guess Bill's an actor because he's like, right, because you didn't get that part. He's like, yeah, but I almost got that part. But Tony's like, yeah, like I've watched my I might not be a mechanic, but I watched my dad enough to, get an idea of like how, because like, once again, none of the cars are working, and you're hoping if you can get a car working under these circumstances, probably help you deal with like the saber-toothed tigers and stuff like that that's coming out of the woodworks and the wolves. But there's definitely something weird about that because, but also like she definitely gave Scott a look when he was like, oh yeah, like, because she's like, oh, like weeds is like a vape. She's like, yeah, that's a sin. He's like, well, good thing I don't believe in God. And she gave him that sharp look, and he was just kind of quiet afterwards. But because for him, he wanted to actually go into the woods. I wonder how he handled that, because he's initially going to go in the woods and have the shovel so that he can like bury it, but like Riley didn't want to go with him. She was looking after Josh, but also it's like he wanted someone to have his back. It's like, you were brave, I was a coward at the time, you were brave and saved yourself, so I was hoping you'd have my back. But now it's like, hey, he's with Veronica so she can bury her dad. They do find him though, but he's in the middle of a formation of rocks. Specifically, someone laid him out to look like a handprint, that symbol we've seen over and over again. So it's a symbol of a tribe. Whether it's that one specific person or it is an entire tribe, I'd assume. Because when Eve and Ty were running from that saber-tooth tiger, it jumped in a spot and fell in a trap. So now they're aware there's someone else out there. And even Scott was like, who put your dad here? He was also, his arm was completely detached. I'm like, did the wolves do that or did someone else? Because they might not have actually moved his body. His body might have been, well, because a lot of the trail led back to being in the woods, like the blood and everything. So either someone moved him to that specific spot, like maybe it's some like spiritual like thing of like cleansing them or something, or maybe they were, I was about to say not unless the body was meant to be bait, but I don't know if that would be. But I guess like in that moment, like Veronica buries her dad's body. But the moment she gets back, she's talking to her sister, like, did you tell them anything about us? Like, they wouldn't understand. She's like, I didn't say anything, I promise. And she tears up. She's like, it's okay, I'm not mad at you. And I'm like, okay, theory time. So immediately I'm like, please don't tell me that this is going to be a twisted situation where we find out that her father is that she said, oh, I got to bury my father. Then in actuality, either it's like oh, that's my father husband, or that's my husband, and that this little girl, Lily, isn't my sister, she's my daughter, or she my sister daughter. You're like, what I mean by that, I hope we're not dealing with a weird situation of it feels like it could be like kind of a Stockholm syndrome situation. I like the fact that she's like, they wouldn't understand our situation, and I'm like, either that or it's part of a cult, which get kind of all tied together. But I'm like, I'm wondering if Veronica's like maybe his daughter, but he has a baby with his daughter, and that's Lily. Or, so it's like, that's why I'm like daughter wife, and Lily's her sister daughter. I'm like, I hope it's not that, but like the fact is that they're like so cagey about it. I'm like, it's gonna be something twisted like that, isn't it? I got that inkling. I'm like, maybe it's something else. Hopefully it's something else, because that's a twisted situation to be in if that's the case. Hopefully I am 100% wrong and it's something else, but sadly that's immediate where my mind was like, it felt a little weird. It felt a little awkward. Like what you're trying to get your sister to like. Also, like the whole like, oh yeah, we normally don't watch like videos and stuff like that, so that's why she was kind of excited to watch stuff, because like she never has that opportunity. Like they're very like Christian. She was also supposed to be quiet because I guess because she's the youngest, and Veronica doesn't want her to like slip up and say something you shouldn't. I mean, to be fair, you're like dad or whatever. No, oh God. And then on my brain's like, oh, my brain starts going in other terrible directions. It's like, not unless they were sold to him or something like that. But I'm like, would they be going through the trouble of protecting him? And once again, it could still be like a Stockholm Syndrome thing. Like, I just don't know what the 100% make of that. So, there's that angle to things. But like I said, Scott is the one. He ends up filling Riley in about like his theory about where they are, that they're 10,000, like, obviously, and she doesn't know the exact time frame, but obviously, like I said, Eve's come to that same conclusion as well. So got a lot of moving pieces here. Luckily everyone, well, except the only person that's died so far is Veronica and Lily's quote unquote dad. So that's something, at least. it's definitely going to be interesting to see where we go from here, where all the pieces line up. You know, Gavin potentially on a rescue mission, what that's going to necessarily look like. It's going to be probably an exchange of information next episode about like, yeah, I have an idea of where we are. Yeah, Scott's got this weird, crazy theory. Eve kind of agrees. It's like, wait, so we time travel. This is wild. This is crazy. Who's going to believe them? Who's not? How did they even get out of here? Like, the means of getting in is high in the sky, and it's like, how do we compensate for that? Well, if Gavin's able to get in here with a plane, then now be compensated. But there's also the situation for Veronica's dad, and also the trap. It's like, somebody set that, so there's someone else here. So what's going on? I'm also curious, is it's going to do the lost thing or not? It doesn't seem like they're doing it so far, so it might not be a situation we see at all. The lost thing, I mean, like, I don't expect it to be a one-for-one, and it's not just something Lost did, it's something also, well, weren't people from Lost connected to Once Upon a Time? Because Once Upon a Time had that structure where like half the episode is set present day, and then half the episode flashes back to the past and stuff like that. So you get like more background on these characters. So like, cause we know nothing about these characters except for what's in front of us. So I'm curious, like, is there going to be any like, will there be like one episode dedicated to giving you a little peek into a lot of these main/recurring characters' lives? Or are we just going to get the story through, like, conversations present day? Like, this is just the time frame we stay in. I mean, we got a little bit with Gavin, but that was, a couple minutes. And that still plays into the overarching main story of, like, his connection to all of this. So he might be an exception to this, but it feels like the type of show you can definitely see them, like, dedicating, like, maybe, like, parts of an episode to, like, individual characters. Like I said, like the Lost thing, but, I'm really interested to see ultimately how this all plays out, where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.